Hello again, everyone. It's Bob Martin, the RCSubGuy with the NautilusDryDocks.com, and this brightly colored submarine is a super interesting background in history, and it happens to be a really cool RC model. Let's take a closer look. So what you see before me is actually a precursor to the German Type 2, and the reason it's done up in these kind of funky colors is because this particular boat has been modeled as the Vesikko, which is actually a Finnish boat. And the story goes that at the end of World War I, the Germans wanted to rebuild their navy, but they had to do it secretly because they were forbidden from owning weapons of war. And so they set up a fake Dutch company, or approached a Dutch engineering company, which was a front for the Germans at the time, and they commissioned what we know now as the German Type 2 as a commercial submarine. That was sold to the Finnish and entered service for the Germans in World War II. Ended up sinking one Soviet merchant vessel in its career, and then it was retired in 1944. And then it was recently turned into a museum ship. I'm actually kind of taken with the paint scheme. Obviously, you're not going to lose this boat when you have it out at the pond. We have brightly colored yellow strips at the front and across the tower, and then we've got black camo across the upper deck and a very bright red hull below the waterline. This particular boat is modeled in 1/27th scale, making it 66 inches in overall length. Taking a look up in the front, you can see that everything is all powered by an OTW dive module. And then the control aspect of the boat is handled through this 8-channel Radio Link 2.4 gigahertz radio system. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at the kind of neat details at the hull, and then we'll delve inside to show you how everything works. So really there's not a lot of weathering done to it. As a museum ship, she's actually quite in pretty good shape. I just did a little bit of highlighting with an airbrush on the lower hull. Did a really subtle wash with a rust-colored wash over the upper hull. One neat feature is this active little mast or snorkel assembly. Unfortunately, it's kind of prone to seizing up. If you put a little bit of oil on there, it actually works pretty good. And inside, there's a little cork on the bottom. Now, as some background to this boat, this was originally built by a gentleman by the name of Ken Griffin, who is a very prolific modeler based out of Florida and a good friend of mine. So he did the vast majority of the assembly. We here at the Dry Docks took possession of the boat on trade and reworked all the linkages to get better throw, which is really, really important. Retrimmed the boat, repainted the boat, did some modifications to the cylinder, and then obviously set it up with the 2.4 gigahertz radio system. Let's take a look at the inside of the boat now. And one of the things I love about this is because of the large ballast tank or watertight cylinder, has a lot of buoyancy here, which means we don't actually need to put a lot of foam in this upper deck area, which means we can just lift it right off. Just going to set it down here. There's just a little bit of foam in that upper hull. It's held down magnetically, so we've got some orientation pins here and then some very high strength magnets, both front and in the back here, and that just keeps everything locked down so that the upper hull doesn't become disconnected. The upper hull is negatively buoyant, so it can't go anywhere. Taking a look in the back here, this is a really common problem with like U-boat models, and that's getting the correct amount of linkage, because you've got this sort of skeg in the bottom here, which makes it a little more problematic to get your linkage down closer to that fulcrum and get more throw. So we did some adjustments in here. We ground all of this out to get additional throw. Ideally, you want 30 degrees in both directions for your dive planes and rudders. So that's what we ended up doing. Works much better now. On the inside, we replaced all of this foam. There were just kind of chunks everywhere, and they were kind of chewed up and nasty looking. We redid all of the ballast weights in the boat with these, much more clean install. What you see in the keel there is the main drive battery. It's a 12-volt nickel metal hydride main battery. We've got some Velcro hold downs for the cylinder, waterproof connection for power, and then of course your forward dive planes that connect to the forward part of the cylinder there. So now that we've talked about that, let's get the cylinder installed in the boat. And to be honest, it's a little bit of a tricky situation, but you do get used to it fairly quickly. I'm going to see if I can handle this on my own after just a few ins and outs of installing the cylinder. So what we're going to do is going to kind of set this in place and pull it, make sure our Velcro's up, here and up in the front. There we go. So the Velcro always falls underneath, but it's super convenient. All right, so now that we've got that done, the trickiest part of the installation is the linkages for the drive shafts. So we're just going to kind of set this up, and we're going to get there we go, the first drive shaft set in place. Then we're going to grab the second one, just kind of push it. So now the splines are all lined up, and if we just push back and lift up, there we go. Those have all nestled into place. These magnetic linkages have jumped into place. The cylinder is basically where it needs to sit, and then we can strap everything down. Take our negative power cable, and we're going to connect that to the negative terminal here. And then, because we have a remote on-off switch in here, we're going to plug this up, make sure that that's sealed, and tuck it out of the way. Grab our forward linkage and connect that. And that is it. It's that easy to install the watertight cylinder. Now that we've got that all done, let's go ahead, turn on our radio. And here's the remote fobs here. I'm just going to go ahead and turn those on. There we go. We've got power, and we can check our functions out. We've got rudder control, we've got good throw there. We've got the override for the stern planes. Those are all actuated through an automatic pitch controller. Since we're back there, we can check our throttles. You can see they move really smooth, even at exceptionally slow speeds. This is a really, really nice drivetrain. And I wish I could take credit for it, but that was all Ken. He did a great job of setting that up. I've said it many times, sort of the definition of a good drivetrain is when you can spin it at very, very low RPMs like that, and it moves nice and smoothly. Going up into the front, we've got our forward dive planes. And then the last function that we have is our ballast system. Now I'm just going to run it for just 1 second because you don't want to run these pumps dry. You always want to make sure that there's water. So that was to submerge. Now if I try to surface, it doesn't work. You can see on the transmitter here, this is my ballast control. It won't allow pumping out because the ballast tank is empty. There's probes inside, and those probes are completely out of the water, so the tank knows that the ballast tank does not have any water in it. So that is all of the functions of this boat. The last thing that you need to do to prep it for the water is to install the antenna here, and that goes right up in here like that. This goes back down like this, There we go. And actually, this is probably an easier way of doing this. This is how we should be doing it, right, Jason? Mm-hmm. There we go. So we want to make sure that this antenna is sticking out, that it's not encased inside that aluminum mast there. Now you've got reception for the boat all the way up until the antenna gets fully submerged. And actually, I find you've usually got even a couple more inches of leeway that the boat will still be receiving signal with. Now on that note, the last thing that we've got going on here is the built-in fail-safe functionality for the boat. And this is really important, obviously, for a 2.4 gigahertz boat, because if you're not paying attention, you may inadvertently dip that antenna below. I will divert a little bit here and talk about this. For a big boat in a large open body of water, you're rarely going to go below periscope depth. Even if that water is crystal clear, when you get to be 50 or 100 feet away, because of the reflectivity of the surface, you will not see your boat under the water, even in crystal clear water conditions. So operating at periscope depth is what you want anyway, and if you're going to be operating at periscope anyway, why would you experience all the drawbacks of a low frequency radio when you can get the performance and reliability of the high frequency radios that are currently available? So that was my 2 cents. The fail-safe functionality, so we're just going to pretend that this boat is trundling along at, say, 1/3 throttle. We're driving around, we're diving the boat, and it dives a little bit too deep. So we're going to push that down, and we're going to simulate that antenna dipping below the surface by turning off the radio. So there's a few things that should happen. The motor should stop, the dive planes in the stern should go up to full rise, the dive planes in the front should go to full rise, and then the ballast system should blow. Now, we're not going to be able to hear the ballast system because it's already empty, so it won't engage, but trust me, it would do that if you could hear it. So we'll simulate, we're going to turn off the radio. It should be almost instantaneous. There we go. Full rise on the planes, rudder goes to center, the motor turns off, the front planes to full rise, the ballast tank blows. In practical application, if you're just dipping and you did it inadvertently, it'll just pop right back up to the surface and instantaneously get signal again. You will hardly even notice that anything happened. We're right back to where we started again at 1/3 throttle. So the boat just dipped back up. The antenna came back up above the surface, and you're operating normally once again. So there you go. This is the 66-inch long, 1/27th scale Vesikko submarine from the Finnish Navy. Vesikko, by the way, translates to mink as in Finnish, in case you guys were wondering. It is a really neat boat. I'm going to leave you with some footage of it during our test experience at the pond. I was exceptionally happy with the performance of this boat. As you'll see, it will maintain periscope depth completely hands-off without the need for any input whatsoever. Turning radius is a little bit big. I'm gonna guess we're probably looking at something like 25 or 30 feet altogether, but it's a big boat. You need a big body of water to operate in anyway. That is not a big deal. The big thing is it's a blast to drive, and it looks absolutely gorgeous on and under the water. So we'll leave you with that. Enjoy the video. My name is Bob Martin. If you have any questions or comments, please leave an email for me at bob@nautilusdrydocks.com. I do check the comments here on YouTube regularly, but if you want a quick answer, email is always best. If you like these videos, please do like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. And with that, we're going to leave you. Thanks for joining me, and we'll catch you next time.